In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make some chill pop music. And to do that, I remade a song that was requested to me for this tutorial called Pink Dress by Humble the Great. And I'll break down my remake of the song's elements, the sounds of those elements, the mixing, the structure and arrangement, all that jazz. So hopefully by the end of this tutorial, you can make a song in a similar chill pop style to this one. Set the tempo around 110 to 115 BPM. Start off by making some very long chords. Kind of go for like chords that are in a minor key. And the length of these chords actually matters because chill pop generally focuses on very long chords like this that usually take up about 2 bars. Just because the chords are more of a background element and it helps other things to stand out in the mix later on. And for the sounds of the chords, I used 5 presets. I used this guitar preset from Flex, this synth preset from MHA's Vital Sound Bank Volume 2, this piano pad preset from Flex, this other synth preset from MHA's Vital Sound Bank Volume 2, and then this electric 80s piano preset from Flex as well. So all of these sounds are very different, but they all fall under the same chill umbrella type scenario. The first one is a very light guitar, and these 2 synth ones right here give it some airy atmosphere. This one right here is just to amplify the sound and kind of elevate it a little bit, and to add some extra texture with the piano sound as well. And then this one down here is just for full texture, but it really helps to add some extra texture to the overall sound. And for mixing, I put this EQ on here, which takes out a very good chunk of the lows, just because we're going to make a prominent bass later, and we don't want the lows of these chords and stuff to counteract that and make it sound muddy in the mix. And then I have another EQ on here that's kind of a little bit separate. It's just to amplify a little bit of the frequencies that were not as prominent on the heat map. And by heat map, I mean that red thing right there. So yeah, not as prominent here, so I turned it up, and then a little bit peaking of frequencies right here, so I just turned it down a little bit as well. And then all of the elements that we're going to have in this tutorial, except the drums, are going to have this sidechain on here just because we want the drums to stand out a little bit more later on and impact a little harder. In order to accomplish that, we put a tiny bit of a sidechain on all of the other elements. Next, take the bass notes from those chords, chop them up into some bass presets. And by bass notes, I just mean like the root notes of these chords. So this is an E major 7 chord, and then this is a B minor chord. So you kind of just want to take like the notes like that and chop them up into a little rhythm that sounds like this. Kind of just like a nice steady rhythm that fits the tempo. Some little variants. You could put a different note that's in the same key just to transition between the 2 different notes right here, but only in the transition stages like this, because you want it to be very consistent and steady throughout the rest of the playing time. And I used 2 flex bass presets to accomplish this sound. I used this one and I used this one as well. It's a very mellow, acoustic, and electric sounding bass guitars. And the only mixing that I did on here is I put the same sidechain from earlier. Now for the drums. I have a kick. Make sure it's very wide and hard hitting. I have a snare. Make sure it's very textured and kind of has like a clap aspect to it as well. I have a hi-hat. Make sure it's not too harsh on the high frequencies and it's kind of a wider sound as well. I have a ride loop that helps to keep the tempo and fill up the mix a little bit in the background. And then I just have a little crash right here as well that acts as like a transition into the drum loop and also like a crash as well. Then all together, the drum loop sounds like this. So a very simple pattern for everything that you would hear in general pop music. Just focus on like the indie aspect of the sounds. The only mixing that I did to this is I put a Fruity Blood overdrive on here with these settings. I turned the color up a little bit more than default. This is default. And then I turn it up like here just to add some extra crispiness. And then obviously the main amp knob to give it some power. Now for some effects, I have a guitar strumming loop. Add some texture to the mix and fills it up a little bit more. And then I have this guitar / piano sample as well. It's just some extra added effects to fill up the background a little bit, and you can find stuff like this on Looperman, which is free, or Splice, which is paid for. They give some great samples like this, and usually what I do is I just randomly tinker by throwing in some random stuff like this and seeing if it fits in the song. Now for the structure and arrangement of this track, so I split up this track into two parts. This is like the chorus right here, and then this is like a bridge or verse area. For the bridge and verse, all I have is the bass, the effects, and then a simplified version of the drum loop right here. It's just the kick, snare, and hi-hat minus the ride and the crash. And then for the chorus, you just put everything all together. You have the same exact stuff from earlier, but plus the chords and then plus the ride and crash. So this is what the overall layout of the track looks like. It's pretty simple. After all that, here's the final result.
Too many questions to put us together. Until then, you'll be my silhouette dream in